Many of you have expressed deep anger and disappointment. Many of you are upset that someone who attempted to destroy our democracy was invited to sit on a stage in front of a crowd of Republican voters to answer questions and predictably continued to spew lie after lie after lie. And I get it. It was disturbing. It was disturbing to see and hear that person refer to a black law enforcement officer as a thug, an adjective he used many times to describe black men, and call Caitlin Collins, the moderator, nasty, which is what he calls any woman who stands up to him. It was disturbing to hear him speak so highly of QAnon conspirators and insurrectionists who assaulted police officers in our democracy on January 6th. And it was awful to hear him spread ridiculous lies about the election. And it was certainly disturbing to hear that audience, young and old, our fellow citizens, people who love their kids and go to church, laugh and applaud his lies and his continued defamation of a woman who, according to a jury of his peers, he's sexually abused and defamed. As good a job as Caitlin Collins did trying to fact-check him, it is impossible to fact-check fully because he lies so shamelessly. Now, many of you think CNN shouldn't have given him any platform to speak, and I understand the anger about that. Giving him the audience, the time, I get that. But this is what I also get. The man you were so disturbed to see and hear from last night, that man is the front runner for the Republican nomination for president. And according to polling, no other Republican is even close. That man you were so upset to hear from last night, he may be president of the United States in less than 2 years. And that audience that upset you, that's a sampling of about half the country. They are your family members, your neighbors, and they are voting. And many said they're voting for him. Now, maybe you haven't been paying attention to him since he left office. Maybe you've been enjoying not hearing from him, thinking it can't happen again. Some investigation is going to stop him. Well, it hasn't so far. So if last night showed anything, it showed it can happen again. It is happening again. He hasn't changed, and he is running hard. You have every right to be outraged today and angry and never watch this network again. But do you think staying in your silo and only listening to people you agree with is going to make that person go away?
A few things here. First, I think Anderson Cooper has been put in the impossible position of having to reconcile both his allegiance to his employer, CNN, and the objective reality that CNN opted to use its air to platform a liar, criminal, and conspiracy theorist. There is nothing he could have said that would satisfy everyone, and Anderson Cooper certainly isn't responsible for CNN's CEO, Chris Licht, putting on a Trump rally. So while my beef certainly isn't with him, I'll still cover what he said. Now, Anderson Cooper starts off by lamenting the fact that Trump was on that stage spewing lie after lie after lie and issuing comments both racist and misogynistic, and Anderson Cooper frames it in such a way that sure, Trump may lie, but he may also become president, and so we have to listen. We have to watch. And to that, I would remind all of you that a big part of why Trump became president is that the media gave him wall-to-wall coverage ahead of 2016. Trump's popularity doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is the consequence of a media ecosystem that rewards his behavior with more coverage, a media ecosystem that apparently has learned nothing. Anderson Cooper also explained how he understood that it was difficult to listen to people applaud Trump's vile comments, and he rationalized it by saying that this is half the country. Now, first of all, the audience was, quote, filled with about 400 voters who are Republicans or Republican-leaning independents. In other words, this wasn't some representative sample of America, it was a Trump rally. CNN filled the audience with a bunch of Trump fans, people who would go on to applaud Trump mocking his own sexual abuse victim. You couldn't have asked for a more predictable response, and you're kidding yourself if you think that CNN doesn't know that. Also, this is not half of the country. Trump got 74 million votes, that is a fifth of the country, and Republicans have won the popular vote in this country exactly one time this century. I'm sorry, but I am so tired of the media playing dumb and pretending that the 20 to 30% of this country that supports Trump makes up half of Americans. The only reason that talking point persists is because of the both sidesism that's perpetuated by the media. If you watch the coverage of the 2016 election, you would think that America was just old white people in diners. All of which is to say, no, this is not half of the country, and the only reason the media thinks that is because of some self-fulfilling prophecy created by the media themselves. Notice too how Anderson explains that as good a job as the moderator, Caitlin Collins, did on that stage, that there's no way to actually fact-check Trump in real time. And that's the point. If you know that this guy lies with such impunity, and your job is to curb disinformation and spread factual information, then maybe don't platform the guy who you know cannot be fact-checked. Maybe don't platform the guy who you just admitted will lie, and there won't be any way to alert the viewing audience to the fact that what they just heard was a lie. Just, for starters. Of course, with that said, we know why they did it. We know that this was a ratings grab by CNN. Think about it. There is no justifiable reason that a news network would give someone a platform with which they could spread disinformation. Would you let ExxonMobil run a climate conference? This was a naked ratings grab by CNN, and one that CEO Chris Licht actually defended when all was said and done. According to former CNN host Brian Stelter, Licht told CNN staffers, quote, "You do not have to like the former president's answers, but you can't say that we didn't get them. Caitlin pressed him again and again and made news, made a lot of news, and that is our job. While we may all have been uncomfortable hearing people clapping, that was also an important part of the story, because those folks represent a large swath of America, and the media screwed up by missing that part of the story in 2015-2016. America was served very well by what we did." I'm sorry, but holy shit, that is dizzyingly off base. Here's the thing. One, it is not a news outlet's job to make news, it's their job to report the news. CNN basically set a building on fire and then congratulated itself on giving everybody something to talk about. Two, yes, the media screwed up by missing that swath of Americans that supported Trump back in 2015-2016, but the media also helped the guy get elected by broadcasting him nonstop, including his empty podium. So if we're really going to pretend that this is about learning lessons from 2016, then maybe we should actually bother learning lessons from 2016. And three, how was America well served by what Trump said? How is platforming a guy lying about the election being stolen serving us well? How is platforming a guy mocking sexual abuse victims serving us well? How is platforming the guy advocating for default and cheering on Russia and attacking CNN's own moderator on stage serving us well? The only ones well served by that town hall were CNN and its advertisers, and it is grossly disingenuous to pretend otherwise. Although I should note that even CNN wasn't that well served when it came to ratings. The event drew 3.3 million viewers, which is far, far beyond what CNN usually averages, but it was still fewer viewers than even Joe Biden got last summer on CNN's town hall, and fewer than several Trump town halls that aired on Fox News in 2016 and 2020. In other words, CNN torched its reputation for pretty middling viewership numbers. And look, Anderson Cooper isn't wrong that Trump may certainly become president again. I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that that isn't a possibility, because it is, and a good one at that. But let's not also pretend that the media doesn't play a huge role in why that is such a good possibility. So often the media's coverage is about the Trump spectacle over actual substance. How many news networks covered legislative accomplishments over these last 2 years? How many Americans know what the American Rescue Plan is, or the Inflation Reduction Act, or that Biden signed the first gun safety bill in 30 years into law, or the PACT Act, or the CHIPS Act, or that he created more jobs in 2 years than any other president in American history has ever created even in 4 years, or that we have a near record low unemployment rate right now? I get that the 10-car pileup that is Donald Trump makes for good TV, but the coverage of him is being done at the expense of informing Americans. And given the fact that demagogues like Trump exploit ignorance, they're actually serving him and his interests quite well. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I think it's worth repeating. This is why independent media is so important. So I would very immodestly ask that if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and help grow a progressive media ecosystem whose decisions aren't dictated by a relentless focus on both sides. Because while some networks are focused on ratings, we should reward the ones that are focused on telling the truth. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started a Spanish channel so we can finally start regaining some of that lost ground among Spanish speakers, so if you want to help support those efforts, you can hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you listen to podcasts and you want to support mine, you'll find a link to that on the screen as well. Thanks so much for watching.